Hi, welcome to the Rondo Coach channel. This is a guide for coaching youth soccer formations. When I started coaching soccer, I asked other coaches which formation to use. I asked 3 coaches and got 5 different opinions. So for some time, I thought that I had to wing it and adjust based on the players that I had. They're going to learn over time and all of that. However, after lots of research and years of experience, I digested all of that into a methodology with a plan on which formations to use, what to coach in each of them, and how to build from one to the other so nothing goes to waste. After all, if we have a multi-year plan on how to teach every other subject in school, why do we keep on reinventing the wheel when it comes to soccer and sports in general? So let's get into it. In the US, as any other country in the world, professional soccer is played 11 against 11. However, the youth system usually start with much smaller games. So U9 and U10, basically kids that are under 9 and under 10 years old, play 7 against 7. Anything before that is 4 against 4 without goalies. At U11 and U12, then we move to 9 against 9. And finally, when we move to U13 and above, it goes into 11 against 11. Obviously, the size of the field and even the size of the goals and even the size of the balls are actually grow over time. So we start from, size 3 and 4 and 5, and then the size of the field and some of the goals increment over time. So nothing surprising here, and some of the rules vary by countries. In the UK, there's a 5 against 5, so they have the goalies. But they all come to the same conclusion anywhere in the world, that having smaller competitions in other ages, 4 against 4, 5 against 5, 7 against 7, and so forth, is important to get more touches on the ball, and it grows over time to 11 against 11 in their teenage years. Before we get into it, I just want to ask you to do me a favor and like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help me tremendously and will keep you updated whenever new videos come up. Also, if you have any comments or ideas on what to see next and what I should do in terms of next videos, just put them in the comments and I'll get back to you ASAP. And while we are developing players, it's important to understand what is our goal. What are we trying to achieve with our formations? We're coming up with formations to help the players develop, not necessarily win the games. If you're an adult and trying to win your local 5-a-side game, you might actually choose a different formation. Then this video might not help you as much. And if you try to win your U7 games, then probably missing a point what you're trying to do as a youth soccer coach and what you're trying to teach these kids. I'm not saying don't try to win the games, but that's not the main goal at that age. We need to make sure that these players that we're developing are going to be ready to play in various formations in multiple positions and roles in those positions. When they go in high school and college teams or even another club, you want them to be ready to fit into whatever formation they need to fit in. Often a winger will need to play as a wingback, as a defender, because that's the only available spot. Maybe over time they'll hold their spot as a winger, but when they're starting, it's going to be the only available spot. So they have to know how to play with it. And if a new players know how to play, they will play. So let's break down into steps how we are doing at each of these stage: 4 against 4, 7 against 7, 9 against 9, and 11 against 11. So we're starting at 4 against 4. In the US, the youngest kids played 4 against 4. In England, they played 5 against 5 just by adding a goalie. At 4 against 4, essentially there's no goalie at that point. Or at least they can use the hands. This opens a bit of an option 5 against 5, but we're not going to get into that much. So first of all, remember that these kids are U8 and younger. They're 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and so forth. So you're not coaching them to do, the inverted false 9 underlapping sweeper keeper role. You're just trying to get them roughly positioned to understand, to have positional awareness. So in a simple way to do it is to understand that they need to expand when they have possession of the ball and compress when they're defending. That's roughly what you need to do. And have a concept of what is an attacker, what is a defender, and what it needs to play on the flanks. So the easiest thing to do is, and the most effective one, is to use a diamond shape formation essentially. So give you opportunity to coach this, who's the attacker and who's the defender, what's their main goal, how to play more safe as a defender, and how to be more risk taking as an attacker. Also, you have the left and the right wing. So the point is, to stay on the side that you need to. So the attacker should be the closest one to the goal, the defender closest to your own goal. Left winger should be closest to the left outline, right winger should be closest to the right outline. So don't overcomplicate it. You're probably going to spend more time, tying their shoelaces, teaching them basic technique, how to pass, how to receive, and do that well. Do that consistently. Keep repeating. Don't forget you're working with very young kids here. If they don't have the technique, they won't be able to execute when more complex formations come anyway. So if you try to figure out the right formation but you don't teach the technique, it's going to be a problem later on. So one more special note on this formation: make sure you're rotating the players through the positions. You will need to see, how they play in these positions, which ones they do better, which ones they do worse. But it's really hard to see until you actually see them in these positions. I've seen players that are pretty much frozen and scared when they're playing in defense, but sprint and chase the ball when they're on the flanks, for example, or because they think that playing safe means always booting the ball. So when they're in defense, they're booting the ball, but when they're playing as a striker, they're actually pretty good on the ball, dribbling and all of that. So give them a chance. This is an age, again, don't worry about winning. This is all about putting yourself in a position to develop the technique, positional awareness, and develop the players. So later on, you're gonna go and take your rewards for this part of the development process. So now we're at 7 against 7. The kids are a little bit better. They're U9, U10, and the formation actually here picks itself. It's a what the defender is. It's a new thing for them to work in pairs, so they will need to start communicating with each other, and that's very, very important. But essentially, they understand what this means. A common mistake that I've seen is the coach puts a single defender kind of like in a 3-2-1 shape, or later on a 3-1-3-1 when they play 9 against 9, because it works better with their age. Why? Because the central defender understands how to defend on their own, but they also don't mean that they know how to communicate. So playing with 2 defenders is always harder at this age because they don't communicate well. But if you don't put them in the situation to develop this skill, it's not gonna miraculously happen when they move to 9 against 9 or 11 against 11. So why would you waste time during soccer development to not give them the opportunity to develop this skill when they're young, to learn how to communicate in defense? In contrast, when you defend in pairs, they have to talk to each other, and you also think about the strengths and the weaknesses of themselves, the partners in defense, and their opponents. So it's crucial importance to go and develop this thing. One more important thing about this phase is that you're likely going to put your best players in the central midfield position, and it is the right thing to do. Your team is going to look better, everybody's going to stay a little bit more in position, the ball is going to flow better, you're going to keep more of the position, and your best player is going to develop more. However, if you develop multiple people with different mindset in that position, it's going to bring huge rewards over time. Some of them might be more defensive-like and play like a 6, dropping in defense, being just in front of the defenders and covering quite a bit. Other players in that, even if you put them in that role, will play more like a 10, will not help that much in defense, might look like they're taking a break when your team is defending, but they're great on the ball. Again, it's not in order to win games only, it's also to develop these players. The important thing is that later on, you will get some of them to play more like a holding midfielder, right? Like a 6. And you need them to develop to understand that position. Others will play it like a 10. You need to develop that. And if you don't develop them now, it's not going to happen by magic when they move later on. So give the multiple players the opportunity to play there. It's going to be hard for some of them. Some of them are going to struggle, depending obviously on the opponents. But give them the opportunity and see how they work. Okay. Okay, now we are at one of the most exciting parts, and that is the 9 against 9. So this is the U11, U12, that age, and the amazing thing is and you when we put them in central midfield positions, so they can play as a 10, as a striker, and as well as the 6. We do want somebody to play more like a 6. We wanted to give them an opportunity to show creativity and to try to think about their strengths and the strengths of their teammates. They start to be more competitive at this age, so they need to think strategically too, right? The rest of the formation is mostly known at this point because it's the great work you put in 7 against 7, right? However, note that at this particular time, there are some patterns that will be fun. People will start learning about overlapping runs and switching the ball from side to side from left to right, from right to left, and so forth. So there are also other patterns of play that you will need to work with them. They will understand space and time better, and as well they will understand the powerfulness of overloading and creating space. There's so much to coach, so sometimes when I'm looking at this thing, it's like 2 years might not be enough. But this formation allows it for all of that to happen, especially because there's so much creativity you can develop at the 2 attacking midfield positions. The most common alternative is the 3-1-3-1. And the reason why is because it's just more solid in defense. You can think of the way that you removed one of the attacking midfielders and you put them in as an extra defender, more or less. But there are many things that I don't like about it. And one of them is essentially that the goalkeeper is not playing with their feet because the main central defender is there and it's basically taking the same role. Another issue that can be a problem for most teams that I've looked at is that there is a classic 10 role. And at this age, playing as a 10 is the hardest thing you can give to a player. If you have the natural number 10, go for it, but it can be pretty daunting for many players at this age. If you're playing a tournament and you know that you have to keep a clean sheet because you're playing against some pretty strong teams, go for it. And they're going to learn some things throughout it, right? The defenders over here can have more attacking roles, as well as the fact that it's going to look a little bit better, but it's not going to develop your players as much. So you will likely not score as many goals, but you will not lose too much either. So give it a try. If you have maybe like maybe half a year out of those 2 years, you can go and do that as well. Yes, finally you're there. This is the U13 and older, 11 against 11. You're done with tying their shoelaces. You're combinations of the lineups and so forth. And it can be overwhelming to know what to choose. What I always do is for the first year, I set them in a 4-3-3 formation. Essentially, I'm just adding two wingers to our previous default 9 against 9 formation. And to be more precise, what I do is I split the roles of the white players that before that were more like a midfielders. I give two of them the role of wingers and two of them the role of wingbacks, or fullbacks. The other players already know what to do, so things look pretty well because everybody else knows what they're doing in this formation. We know exactly how all of these things should work, and we already played. Many of these players already play on the flanks or maybe the attacking midfielders, so they know how to act in these roles. I try to give at least a year on 4-3-3 before tinkering with the formation, and at that point, after you're done with that, you can go and analyze what your team is good at and play to their strengths and weaknesses. But the first year is to learn the basics of each position and the traditional way of playing it. It is just the strawberry on the cake after years of building it that you're seeing everything fits together. Things that you've taught on 4 against 4 and 7 against 7 and 9 against 9 for 5, 6, 7 years, they finally fit into result that you can see on the pitch. You can try to move into a 4-2-3-1 formation, with a double pivot and a single playmaker. Or you can do something maybe like a 4-4-2 sometimes will work well if you have two natural goal scorers. I would try to also give between U13 and U18, I will try to give at least a year of 3-4-3. And that is because you want to see if your defenders can actually play in a 3-person defense, and sometimes a 5-person defense, right? If you're trying to defend quite a bit with the white players. All of these formations, really, this 4 or 5 years of 11 against 11, is to give the players the variations of experience, so that they can develop multiple roles and multiple positions. You're also trying to balance and accommodate for their personalities and qualities. At this stage, they will show them quite explicitly often, and you should know them because you've been coaching them for some time. Don't be scared to experiment, but have lots of chat with them to understand if they're doing something because that's how they understand it, or are they doing something because that's the best they can do. And sometimes they're just rebels and they wouldn't do something even if they know how to do it. So have a lot of talk with them for them to understand, because it's more important to understand than to actually perform very often at this age. Learning actually culminates. That's why we have 5 years, more or less, of 11 against level 11, and you will be surprised very often by the development that they have during those years. So that is it. We went through a plan on how to coach these formations. Consider the blueprint, but acknowledge that you have to do the work. You will have to make the decision on which player to develop in which position, and when to learn the new roles, when to stick and relearn a role that they've done or position. And let me know if you want me to get into the details of each formation and how to develop these players at each stage. And each stage has its own challenges, and if you do them in order, you'll get the results that you want. Some of them might take longer and some of them might take shorter, but don't forget it's gonna take some time to get it right, and lots of adjustments will happen along the way. Thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.